I love each and every person that's listened to this tape, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And I challenge you, go make the world a better place, because you're in it and you're sober today. And that's what you're charged to do in this program. Do not rest on your laurels. Make the world a better place. And thanks for letting me share.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you're all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas, on this here episode number 415 of Sober Speak. That was the voice once again of Mr. Dave F. that you heard at the beginning of this episode. And you are going to hear so much more from Dave in just a moment. But first things first, this episode is made possible by Patrick, Aaron, Theo, Laura, and Tim. And so you ask yourself, what exactly did Patrick, Aaron, Theo, Laura, and Tim do? Well, they went by our humble little website, www.soberspeak.com. They clicked on the little yellow donate tab and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Patrick, Aaron, Theo. Thank you, Theo. Laura and Tim, for your generosity. This here episode is coming right out to you'ns. So I just want to make sure that I share this because I was thinking about it yesterday. As many of you know, many of you were aware of from listening to the podcast over the past couple of months, my father passed away just recently. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because yesterday was his birthday, I guess would have been his birthday. And I had a lot of feelings come up, many more feelings than I anticipated. But I was able to cry and grieve, feel it, get it all out. I just started thinking about how I wasn't able to call him on that day, or I wasn't able to send him a card on that day, and about how I am so similar to him in many, many ways, and about how his blood just flows through me. And so I was sad, and that's okay. I have a great support team around me, and I was able to reach out to various people and let them know that, I was sad, and something that I wasn't expecting it to that degree. I don't know why. I don't know exactly what I expected, but I really grieved much more than I anticipated. And I just felt like that was something that I needed to share with you guys. And I say all the time, I know I'm not the only one to lose a parent, either out of sobriety or in sobriety. But I do have a mic in front of me, and the only reason I share it is to basically say, hey, I'm in this boat with you guys, right? I put on my pants one leg at a time, just like everybody else, and we all take it one day at a time. So thank you for indulging me with that. Now, onto Mr. Dave F. So this one is called Dave F. Make the World a Better Place. Dave is from Flower Mound, Texas. And forgive the abrupt start at the beginning of this episode, but this is basically a continuation of what we talked about last week on Dave F. Episode number 414, Bleeding on the Tables. In this episode, we discuss the power of God. We talk about the moment when Dave heard from the doctor, "You may never walk again." And Dave said, "You don't know my God." We talk about prayer, meditation, faith, vision work, not visio. That's something completely different. Vision work, and what that is, how God can use our character defects for good, and so much more. And as always, we will have plenty of listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy, Dave.
And I do that there's a Tuesday night men's meeting and a Saturday morning men's meeting that I if I'm available, I attend religiously. And after both of those meetings, one of the things that I've started to do is there'll be 10 or 15 guys will stay afterwards. They have time and we'll sit there and we'll talk. And I'll start out by saying, all right, who screwed up this week? Right. And in the big book, it talks about we're as a sponsor, our job is to lay the spiritual toolkit at the other man's feet. And so it hit me in meditation one day. Well, what's in my toolkit? And so I wrote an exercise, the spiritual toolbox exercise, right? It's another one of the exercises. and so when we do basically it's the applied spiritual toolbox exercise. And so I'll say, okay, who screwed up this week? And somebody will say, well, I screwed up royally last night. Here's what happened. And they'll start to tell the story. And I'll say, okay, I'll get just enough of the story to understand the dynamic of what was going on. And then I'll interrupt them and I'll say, okay, what tools did you have in your toolbox that you didn't use? And then they start thinking about it. And they're like, they'll pick one or two tools, usually what I call the low hanging fruit. They'll pick those and I'll say, well, what about this tool? Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, why didn't you think about it? And everybody on the meeting that's there is learning from each other. Mm-hmm. And once two or three guys go, and I'll say, okay, here's Dave's. Here's where I screwed up. And then I'll tell them, and they're sitting there looking and going, this guy's got 40 plus years and he did that? I'm like, yeah. And it's part of the bleeding on the table. And I say, but here's what I did about it. A friend of mine, Karen S., from New Jersey, one time wrote an article that went into the Grapevine and they printed it and it was lovely. And she called it AA, the spiritual dumping ground. Because people come in with their problem du jour and they just vomit all over the group and they never talk about what they did about it. One of the things that Carl did, we said, when you're bleeding on the table, you have to go in there and talk about what you screwed up on. And then you have to report back to your home group and say, hey guys, you remember I shared last week that I did yek, A, B, and C? Well, here's what I did about it. I wrote the inventory. I went and made amends. And here's the cool outcome. And they talk about the spiritual result. And so everybody gets to see, wait a minute, this person had some time. They made a mistake and they used the tools. And here's how they actually applied the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And here's God, where God showed up. And they get to see a front row miracle viewing of what occurred. That is so powerful. And that's what we're supposed to do at the podium. People get up to the podium sometimes and you hear drunkalog, drunkalog, drunkalog. And then they go, and then I came into AA and everything's been great. And you sit down and you're like, wanting, where was that? Right? Versus somebody that comes in and says, hey, here's a little bit of my story. I did a couple of bad things. Here's give you a flavor so you know that he's one of us.
Qualified.
And then they say, hey, but here's the step work I did, and here's the amends I did, and here's how I found God, and here's where God showed up in this situation. Here's how God showed up in that situation. And they sit down, and you're like the Memorex commercial. The guy sitting in the chair with his hair's blowing back. You're just like, oh my God, that was awesome, right? Because the cement from page 17 in the big book are half common problem, half common solution. If they just get up there and give you problem, and no solution, you're wondering what's the deal. But when they get up there and they go problem, and here's the solution, and here's where God showed up, and you get to see a front row seat to the spirituality in that, and you go, whoa, I want that. How do I get that? Right. And then you're like, hey, it's easy. Just go through the steps. Boom. That's the best sales tool that there is out there is when you can bleed on the table and show how God showed up. People are hungry for that. It's like moths to a flame. They show up. Yeah.
This has been incredible. Like, I know. Okay, so we're just gonna have to schedule some more time at another
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely.
And you know what I love about the time we spent together, you know, like you said, you've made reference to some crazy things you did in the past, you know, how
Sure.
it all started and all that sort of stuff. But we've been talking about all kind of present day stuff.
Yeah.
How you're working the steps today, and that
And-
means so much.
And for anybody that's listened to this series of podcasts, I challenge you right now, go back and re-listen to it and pick out the number of times you heard me reference God and the power of God has been in my life. When God has shown up, when he absolutely, it's an impossibility and God showed up, right? I'll give you one last story. In 2010, I'm flying airplanes, right? And I'm at the peak of my career and I'm flying wide body airplanes and I'm on a layover in London and it had snowed. And it's really unusual to get a lot of snow in London, right? There was a couple inches. And when it snows in London, everything shuts down because they really don't have plows and stuff to be able to clean up this. And it's beautiful. And I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted. I've been flying all night. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time I get to the hotel, it's 7 a.m. I change into my civilian clothes. And matter of fact, it was my anniversary. It was December 5th, 2010. And I'm going to go walk to an AA meeting and because that's part of my discipline, right? And I get out and it's just gorgeous. There's snow on the ground. There's not a soul on the streets in London, which is really unusual. It's that peaceful quiet. And you can hear the as you're walking through the snow. And there was an overcast and a little hole popped up in the overcast and this beam of sunlight was coming down and it hit the side of this church spire and the snow had stuck to the side of it. And I'm looking up at it and I'm like, thank you, God. And I'm praying. I said, that would be a beautiful photograph. So I take my cell phone out, and as I'm turning the corner, I'm looking up at it and getting ready to take the picture. And what I hadn't seen was the snow had melted and refrozen, and it was black ice. And my leg goes forward and then to the side, and I slip and fall, and I hear this. So I land on the ground, and I kind of do a body scan from the top of my head to the tip of my toes. Can I wiggle my fingers? Yeah. Can I wiggle my feet? Yeah, everything's working. I roll over onto my stomach and I crawl over to the stone wall and I climb up and I sit there for a minute. I'm like, okay, I'm all right. I go back to the hotel. I take a handful of Tylenol and Advil. I go to sleep. I sleep the entire 24 hours. Get up the next day, another handful of Tylenol, and I fly home. Get to New York and I said, hey, I'm going to the doctor. To my boss. I said, I'm calling sick for my next trip. And it turns out I had broken my back. I had no idea. Well, they put me on workers' comp, which is the kiss of death. Because the workers' comp insurance company, their opening position was your broken back was a pre-existing condition and they refused to let me have surgery. And you can't even pay cash to get the surgery. So long story even longer, I ended up with severe nerve damage. And I go in, I finally get the surgery after 8 months. And with the bone chips grinding on the nerves, and I come to in the recovery room, and the doctor's standing there, and he's crying. He says to me, "I don't know how to tell you this. You're never going to fly another airplane. I'm just hoping I can get you to walk again." Because at that point, after 7 months, I couldn't go upstairs. I couldn't go up an incline. I had to use 2 canes. That was 1 step away from a wheelchair. And without hesitating, I looked the doctor in the eye and I said, "Doc, you don't know my God. I'm going to walk and I'm going to fly airplanes again." It took 5 years of the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced because all doctors have is opiates. And I've danced with that devil. And so they offered me opiates. I said, absolutely not. I used prayer and meditation to deal with the pain. And there were days where I'd just watch the second hand go around the clock and say, I'm not going to kill myself for the next minute. Because it was that kind of agony. It was like somebody was sticking a hot poker up the bottom of my feet. It was excruciating. Prayer, meditation, faith. 5 years later, I get my medical back. I'm walking back to that doctor. He hasn't seen me in 3 years at that point, and he's crying again. He says, in 30 years, I've never seen somebody with your injuries recover. He goes, your nerves look like black pieces of linguine. There's no way you should be walking. And I said, Doc, do you remember what I told you? He says, yeah. He said, you don't know my God. That changed the doctor's life, and it changed my life. That's my sobriety story. My whole life is you don't know the power of God until you look at me, the brokenness I had coming in here, the deficits that I dug for myself with the drugs and the alcohol and the people that I'd hurt to get to where I am today. People say, well, how do you have the time? I've written thousands and thousands of pages on recovery, exercise after exercise, workshops. Every time I do a workshop, it's new. It's different. I write a different set of study guides. I put out, and it's all free. As long as you use it within the traditions, it's published. I just put it out there. It's on the internet, right? I volunteer all the time. Believe it or not, I'm a chaplain for the police and fire department today. How do you go? I'm an ordained minister. How does that happen, right? With coming from where I come from, right? But my life is a life of service. Because remember the laminated card I told you about? What I want doesn't matter. I don't get a vote because I work for God today. I get up every morning and say, God, what do you got for me? Right? I've created a new exercise, and I call it when you shift. It's a shift exercise, right? Right now we're in here, and people don't know, but before we started the podcast series, we both prayed together, right? Now the podcast is going to end, and I'm going to shift, right? I'm going to go back out into the world and get in my car, right? One of the toughest things for an alcoholic to do is drive, because you're in in the car, and the itty bitty shitty committee is talking to you, and everybody's an idiot, and everybody to know where'd you get your driver's license, out of Cracker Jack box, right? That constant litany that goes through your head. So before I'm going to do that, before I leave your studio AA here, yeah, I will say a prayer to myself and say, okay, God, what's next? Come on, let's go. Because I'm going to shift and go to another place. When I get in the car, I'm going to drive home. I pull over in front of my neighbor's house. They think I'm crazy, but every time I pull over in front of their house and I put on my spiritual armor, because what happens when you walk through the door? The problem du jour. My wife will go, oh, honey, I'm so glad you're home. While you were gone, this happened and this happened. And if you're not spiritually centered, you're going to react, right? So I'm going to shift from driving in the car. I'll put on my spiritual armor, and then I'm going to walk in the house. There's another exercise I created called the 5 for 5, right? When I walk in, I'm going to spend 5 minutes with everybody in the household. So I start with my wife. Wherever she is, I go to where she is in the house. She's in doing laundry, I'm going into the laundry room. If she's standing, I'm going to stand with her, and I'm going to shut up and listen. And she's going to tell me what's going on. How's it? I'll spend 5 minutes with her. Then I'm going to go to the kid, spend 5 minutes with the kid. I got 3 dogs. I'm going to spend 5 minutes with the dogs because they're hungry. You know, they're jumping around, and they wait until they know my routine now. And then they know they're going to get 5 minutes with me. And then I'm ready to be part of the house. In the old days, I'd show up at the house and I'd be like, yeah, hey, baby, I'd give her a peck on the cheek. And I'm like, where's the mail? I want to go look through the bills. Anything happen? Self-centered to the extreme. I want to see, oh, did I get any messages on my phone? No, I spend the time. So before I shift throughout the day, I recenter myself, and I talk to God. It's like, okay, God, what's next? Come with me. And if you do that, your whole life will change. I guarantee it. You know, most alcoholics get up in the morning and they pray. I'd say probably 95% of alcoholics pray. Maybe, and I'm going to be generous here, maybe 5% meditate. Less than 0.1% do vision work. The Big Book gives us 3 things, and they're always together in the Big Book: prayer, meditation, and vision. When I got sober, they used to talk about vision all the time, and it's the key to changing your negative behaviors. If you can't see it, you can't change it, right? When I teach at workshops and stuff and retreats, I use the analogy of a quiver, like for an archer. It's a leather sleeve on your back, right? Well, if you've only got one arrow in your quiver for a situation, guess which arrow you're going to shoot? You're going to pull out that negative behavior, and you're going to shoot that arrow every single time because it's the only arrow you got, right? But if you can have vision, right, now you can create a second arrow. So the classic example, what brought this to my mind was when I'm in my office doing program stuff or whatever I'm doing, I'm in the zone. I'm in the office, and my wife will come to the office door, and the door is 90 degrees to my right. And I call it the turret because now she's interrupting the great I am. Does she not? She know that I'm busy? And I call it, as I turn to face her, as I swing the turret around, right? Very often I'd go, what? Rude as hell. I would treat her worse than I would treat a stranger on the street. I'm embarrassed to even say it, right? And one day it hit me in meditation. Okay, what should you do differently? Instead of saying, what? And so I thought about it. I did some meditation on it. And what popped into my mind was, yeah, baby, what can I do for you? So as I'm swinging the turret, I realize now I've got a new arrow in the quiver. I can still go, what? That's arrow number one. Or I can go, yeah, baby, what can I do for you? Mm-hmm. Right? That's arrow number two. Well, if you shoot arrow number two long enough, arrow number two becomes arrow number one, and arrow number one drops out of the quiver. That's how you change your negative behaviors. It's about vision. If you can't see it, you can't do it. Look at any professional athlete. What do they tell you? They tell you they see themselves doing it to perfection. Then they have a chance at attempting to do it to perfection, right? We're supposed to practice. What does practice entail? It involves practice.
Right.
Most alcoholics don't practice. They come to AA meetings. They listen. Oh, yeah, that's great. Wonderful, Jewel. I got this great piece of information, and they do nothing with it. They go back out and live life without doing it. I take it and I bring it to God. I create a vision of what it's going to look like to do it differently. And then I'm like, okay, God, what's next? Come on with me. And now I have a chance of changing the negative behavior and doing a positive behavior. So that's the shift exercise. Try it. It'll change your life. It has for me. It's what I call advanced sobriety. The people talk about emotional sobriety. Well, that's advanced sobriety. How do you get there? If you're still an emotional dwarf like I was when I got sober, and I can still be today, I can revert back to it in a nanosecond. I call it the lowest common denominator. You put me in a room with a 70-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 13-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Guess who's going to be on the floor playing with the 3-year-old? Me. I go to the lowest common denominator because I can identify, right? Same thing emotionally. I'm the same way. But if I have a vision, I have a chance at living life like a grown-up adult the way I'm supposed to, instead of being petty and selfish and all the things that alcoholics are troubled with, And the cool thing is God will take those negative character defects. And if you have a vision, he'll give you a chance to practice it. He'll give you opportunity after opportunity to practice and work on it. And then he'll use it for his benefit. I can remember I was going to the military base, and I was in a hurry, and I'm in the 7-Eleven, and this woman is counting change out of her purse, and she can't find the right coin. I'm like thinking to myself, lady, I'll pay the damn thing. Just get out of the way, right? And I get up, and the poor little girl behind the counter, she's like, what can I get for you? And I'm just check me out. And I'm kind of rude to her. And you could just see her, I'm this big burly guy, and she's this poor little thing. And she could tell I was pissed. I intended to make sure she knew I was pissed. And so then I jump on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I'm driving to the military base, and I'm thinking, you horse's backside. What did you just do? So I hit the next exit. I do the jug handle, swing around, I drive back up, and I have to hit another exit, do another swing around to come back down to the 7-Eleven. And I walk back in, and her eyes, she sees me coming, and she's like, oh no, not that guy again. And I had to wait in line until I got up to her, and I said, I treated you abominably. There was no excuse for my behavior. I regret everything I did. I wish I could make it up to you. I'm so sorry. How's your day going? And she looked at me, she goes, are you in some kind of a 12-step program or something? I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. And she says, would you be willing to talk to my brother? He's got a really bad drinking problem. God used that character defect for me to be able to go to a 12-step call. That never would have happened if I wasn't a horse's ass. But because I did the tools, I went back and made amends, God chose it to use it. Now, I don't know whether that guy's still sober. I went and did the 12-step call, took him to an AA meeting, got him a big book. It was 45 miles from my house. He had my number. We talked I know he started going to meetings. He could still be sober. I have no idea. The point of the story is God will use your character defects. It'll give you a chance to practice if you're open to it. And then your life will change for the better. And it becomes something that you can help someone else with. you hear me getting upset. I'm not upset. These are tears of joy. I'm not in pain when I'm sharing these stories. I'm a crybaby from the podium because I see the gift that God has given me, the grace. I am the luckiest man on the planet. I am so blessed to have these experiences. And like I told you, I could tell you stories all day long because God gives them to me on a regular basis. If you're awake and you're doing his work, your life will change. And it's the coolest ride on the planet. Do not miss it, right? Matter of fact, you read it at the end of your podcast every time, right? A vision for you, right? Still, you may say is where I start. You start a little bit further down, right? You cannot transmit something you haven't got.
Yeah.
But if you've got it, you can change people's life. You can save another person's life with your experience, not with your knowledge, not with your opinion. That'll kill somebody. But if you've got experience, you know the old story. I used to tell it at workshops. The guy that falls into the pit, right? And he's in the bottom of the pit. He doesn't know what he's going to do. And he's like, hey, help, help, help. He's screaming for help, right? And along comes a minister, and the minister says, I'll pray for you, my son, right? It's like, what? That's not going to help me. Help, help, help. And all these people keep coming by, right? And then the last person that comes along is an alcoholic, and he jumps into the hole. And the guy says, what are you, a stupid? Now we're both stuck in here. And he goes, no, dude, I know the way out, right? That's what God will do for you. You'll know the way out because you've had the experience. You can save somebody's life because somebody helped save your life with it. And, your debt gets bigger every time somebody helps you. So you got to go help the next guy. Somebody set the table for you. So you got to set the table for the next guy. That's what sobriety is about. And before you know it, you look back and you'll have decades behind you. And you'll be thinking, man, I am one lucky SOB. But put a gray hair or blue hair in front of me, driving 5 miles an hour under the speed limit, and I can lose my serenity in a nanosecond. That's the beauty of sobriety. Anyway, I'm done.
This has been great. We're going to have to schedule some more time again.
Sure.
Like I said, this has been absolutely fantastic. As always, I'm going to read from page 164 from the big book to close us up. It says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find, like Dave is doing, and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us, like me and Dave, as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Once again, my friend, go ahead.
Something just hit me while you were reading that.
Yeah, go for it.
When we get time the next time to come back, I need to do a talk on the 12 daily prayers because the 12th prayer is right on that page. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, sure. Page 164.
164.
We go, okay.
Right. And people, it's funny. They look, I had this lady, she was like 45 years sober one day, and she walked up to me and she's like, where are you getting these 12 daily prayers from? And I showed her a couple of them, and she's like, oh my God, I've never seen them. Right. And on 164, it says, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize only know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him.
Ask.
Anytime the book says ask, put a square around it. That's a prayer. Ask him in your morning meditation. That tells me I'm supposed to be doing it every morning, right? People say, where do you get the 12 dailies from?
Yeah.
It says in your morning meditation, right? Yeah. What you can do for the man who's still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. That's the 12th prayer, right? So remember I said prayer, meditation, and vision?
Yeah.
Ask him is the prayer. The meditation is, what can I do for the man who's still sick? First question you have to ask is, who's the man who's still sick? Sometimes it's you, but most of the time it's me. Am I working the program? What am I doing? What am I doing for me? Have I been to my number of meetings? Have I called my sponsor? Have I called another drunk today? Am I doing the things I'm supposed to be doing? If that answer is yes, then I go to the next step and I go, well, who haven't I seen in a meeting in a while? I haven't seen John in a while. Let me call John, make sure he's doing okay, right? Because I've just checked to make sure that my own house is in order. I can't transmit something I haven't got. If I find a hole in my own house today, I'm the man who's still sick, and I'm going to take the time and build some time in my day for me to do an inventory, call my sponsor, do the exercise, whatever I need to do so that my own house is in order. And then I'm going to go find somebody that I can help carry the message to. It's the 12th prayer of the 12 daily prayers, right out of the book. So next time we need to do
Just the
12 daily prayers.
The 12 daily prayers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you mention you have a website or something?
No, I have Mediafire. It's a cloud server.
Yeah.
And I have all the workshops that I've ever done. They're all stored on the cloud server. I have a reading disability also. So AA tapes have saved my life. Yeah. I've got 30,000 recordings because I'm an audio person and a visual person. I cannot read really well. I have a reading disability. So when I started hearing tapes, that's why I being good friends with Glenn Kay because of tapes. And he's such a cool guy. Was the biggest taper on the East Coast in the Gulf War #1. Guys are over in Saudi Arabia station. We're getting ready to invade Iraq and Saddam Hussein and the troops are over there for months before we invaded. And I'm like, Glenn, can you help me out? These guys are over there. There's no AA meetings. Alcohol's illegal in the country. And he would make up hundreds of cassette tapes, cases of them. And I'd fly them over and I'd give them to the chaplains. And the chaplains would go around to all the different units and they would distribute them to guys to get the message out. If that's not God, I don't know what is. How cool is that? But
I grew up on those cassette tapes as well. Did you know George Burnett?
Yes.
Who lived in this area? Yeah.
George and Beverly. Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, that I had to make an amend because I came to a convention here and George was being taped and he got robbed at the end of the convention and they stole all of his money. And I had bought some of his cassettes and it was like 6 months later and I'd heard that George had gotten robbed. I didn't know because I wasn't down in Dallas. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I heard you got robbed at that event. And he's like, yeah, I did. And I said, I bought some tapes from you. And I said, I bought this set and this set and this set. And I said, I got it. It was a credit card that I paid with, but I'm sure you lost everything. He said, yeah, they took the entire register when they stole at gunpoint, they took the whole thing. And so I called him up and said, hey, I owe you some money. So I paid him over the phone. And so that's how I got to know George. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy. I didn't have a ton of money back then.
Yeah.
And I would but I would save my dollars and I would go over to his house and I'd say, George, just give me 6 of the best. I just give me whatever you have, whatever you think. And I would pay him for them. And I would put those little tapes in my Honda CRX and the cassette player. And I would play those things and I would just wear them out.
Glenn would have a subscription service and he'd take the best of the best once a month and he'd send whatever was the best recording he got for that month and he'd mail it to you. And so I couldn't wait until I'd get that tape. Right. It would come in the mail, wrap that sucker up. At the time I was flying out of Kennedy in New York and I lived in New Jersey. So it was like at least 90 minutes drive to the airport. And so 45 minutes and then I flipped that sucker over. I could get one talk all the way to Kennedy and back. The same thing to McGuire Air Force Base was in South Jersey. It was another 95 miles. So I would literally do one talk on the way to the airport, one talk on the way back, whether it was military or the airlines. Mm-hmm. I've done thousands and thousands of talks and they have saved my life, and all those people are dead now. Right. They're all gone.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of them are, not all, but I know what you mean, but most of them.
Yeah. And then you wake up one day and you look around and you go, damn, I'm the old timer?
Right.
Who's the guy that made this mistake?
Right.
Put me as the old timer. and it takes on a whole new responsibility. And you realize, wow, the traditions all of a sudden move up the list. Mm-hmm. When you first get sober, you could care less about the traditions, right? And the concepts. I did a presentation on the concepts once, and this woman came up to me, long-term sober, and she goes, I know the 12 steps. She goes, I've heard of the 12 traditions. She goes, but this crap with the 12 concepts, I don't know where you're getting that stuff. You're full of crap. And she stormed off. And I yelled at her as she was walking away. I said, they're in the AA service manual. And she turned around and she goes, there's no such thing. I've never heard of that book. I've been sober, 30 years or whatever. I'm like, okay, have a nice day. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hear the dog?
Yeah, the dog wants to come in.
Yeah. What happens is she hears, and she's made appearances on the podcast before.
Yeah.
She'll hear laughter and such.
Of course, she wants to be part of it.
Right. And she definitely wants to be in here, be near you, on your lap and all that.
Dogs read energy.
Yeah.
I have a disabled son, and we trained up. He needed to get some treatment, so I took him to Germany, and he and my wife lived in Germany, and I commuted from Frankfurt for a couple months while they were getting treatment. And then I bought a lab puppy. I've raised labs my whole life, so I bought a lab puppy and trained her up. And then when he came back, we hired a professional to finish the last bit of training. So he's got a service dog, and her energy, he can be upstairs in his apartment and she can be downstairs with us, and she'll walk over to the door and she'll start to pace, and you can tell she wants to get to him. She can pick up on his energy that something's not right. And then she's trained when he's not right, she comes up and she'll paw at him until he bends down, and then she jumps up and gives him a hug. If that doesn't calm him down, then she goes and gets his med bottle and brings it to him. Right? He takes his meds, and then after a time period, if he's still not calm, then she comes and she'd come to us and paw us and say, "Hey, come in. No one needs help." Dogs have unbelievable energy. It's fantastic. So we're laughing. They could be the other side of the house. They'll sense the energy and they'll want to come be part of it because they're pack animals. Same thing with prayer. I've actually seen dogs, and I got it from Emmett Fox. There's a story in Around the Year with Emmett Fox, and he talked about praying when dogs were fighting. And so I happened to be near a dog fight. These dogs started fighting, and I said, "Let me try this, see if it works." And I started praying about the dogs, and they stopped fighting. And I was like, "Oh my God, this really worked." They read the energy, and you're like, "Praise God, please stop fighting, love. You're both good puppies." And the next thing you know, they separated. The fight was over. They're amazing at reading energy. Yeah.
I noticed my wife just came downstairs. You're going to get to meet the lovely Mrs. M, as I call her.
Fantastic.
On the way out.
You may want to think about that. I know some secrets from what you shared at a meeting today. I won't put it on the podcast, but I'll tell you guys this much. He said, "I probably shouldn't share this." Then he shared it. And then he got done. He goes, "Nobody tell my wife what I just shared today, please." Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, this has been great. Listen, I already read the page 164 that we went on. So I'll just say, God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
This has been fantastic. We'll see each other again soon.
Well, I want to say one last thing. I love each and every person that's listened to this tape, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And I challenge you, go make the world a better place, because you're in it and you're sober today. And that's what you're charged to do in this program. Do not rest on your laurels. Make the world a better place. And thanks for letting me share.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Amen.
Dave, you are absolutely incredible, my friend. I'll look forward to getting you back over here very soon, recording some more and sharing it with the listeners. They've been asking for it, begging for it. And so I look forward to getting you back over here again soon. Now, remember, folks, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush, but we would absolutely love for you to pause that device, pause your device. In other words, you don't want to do this while you're listening to it. You want to pause the device, right? You want to go to that little share button, not like Sonny and Share, but share, SHARE, and share that episode or the entire podcast with another friend or family member. It may be just what they need today. Theo writes in, oh gosh, I love getting messages, emails from Theo, and Theo's subject line was, "Did I do it right?" He says, "Hey, John, I hope I did it right. I went to your website and put so-and-so dollars on my Cash App because I don't have PayPal. Your pods have been a blessing to me, and I don't have transportation yet, and my parole officer lets me do the pods as my support group. So you help me inside the walls, and now you help me outside. God bless you and keep up the good work. It's the least I can do to contribute to your podcast, brother. You have no idea how much your work helps me. Real recognizes real. In a world of fake and false reality, it's the exact right medicine we need for our sick world. I appreciate you and what you're doing, and I'm going down through the list of the episodes, soaking up as much wisdom as I can. I just may need it when some crazy person is sick enough to ask me for help, and I promise you I will say yes when that day comes. Thank you, or take care, brother. Theo, quote unquote, Dallas S. Mr. Theo, God bless you. Hey, listen, man, you save your money, and I just want people to know this once again, and I've said this many times, only contribute if and when the spirit moves you to do such. I am complete. Yeah, I trust that this will take care of itself. Theo, I appreciate that you contribute, but I'd much rather you give some money to your local group when you're able to go to your local group, or save some money for a car or something like that. God bless you, my friend, and I'm so glad you wrote in. So glad you wrote in, and I'm so glad you're doing well and thriving. It's so cool, so cool. Ray writes in, and Ray says, "Hey, John, I'm a long-time listener. Laugh out loud." I don't know. Anyway, so he says, LOL. He says, "I recently celebrated 21 years of sobriety." Good for you, my friend. Good for you. I know all of your stories are unique, but I would like to share something. I've had tons of God moments in my sobriety, and one of the most important messages I got was several years ago. Unfortunately, in sobriety, my brother passed away. While I was away for a work trip, he had cancer that was discovered at a very late stage. When I left, I checked in with my dad, and he said they were doing testing to see what exactly was going on with him. A few days later, my brother called me to say I might want to think about getting on a plane home to New Jersey. Later that day, he called and he said, "If you're coming, you'd better get on a plane ASAP. ASAP." In that moment, my higher power gave me an insight. I knew if I got on that plane home from California, my brother would pass away while I was over the Midwest. And even with 10 plus years at that point, I knew the drink cart wouldn't make it past me without me ordering some gin being my drink of choice. I called back and I said I couldn't get on the plane because I knew how the story would end. The next day he called me to let me know my brother had indeed passed away based on the flights I was looking at. I would have indeed been over the Midwest at that time. I looked to find a meeting. I found a sunrise meeting in Los Angeles, about 5 blocks from my hotel. I went in, and when they asked if anyone was having a problem impacting their sobriety, my hand shot up like it had been touched by a cattle prod. Everyone was so supportive, but halfway through the meeting, a guy tapped me on the shoulder and asked to speak to me outside of the meeting. I went into full New Jersey mode in my mind, and I was prepared for him to share how I shouldn't have dumped right at the beginning of that meeting, but instead he asked me what my brother's name was. He was a Catholic priest who needed to leave the meeting early to do the morning mass, but for some reason he felt needed to be at that meeting, even though he knew he'd have to leave early, and he'd shared that he'd offer the meeting for my brother. If that's not a God moment, I have no idea what it could be. Anyway, I have tons of stories where God has truly been there for me, and thanks to my sobriety, I've been able to be aware of them. Kindest regards, Ray. Well, Mr. Ray, thank you so much for writing in. Once again, congratulations on your 21 years of sobriety, and hanging in there throughout some difficult times. And God bless you, my friend. And try not to go full New Jersey on anybody this week, okay? What else do we have? Oh, I think that's it. All right, everybody. That right there is episode number 415 in the books. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this one week at a time. And I hope to be back next week. You never can tell, but may God bless you and keep you until then. Peace out.